Welcome back to the DreamHack Open November. And before we get our grand final underway, we've got to talk about something that's very much on the line here because the ESL Pro Tour is very much go and 100 points are up for grabs. You can see on the right column, Spirit, if they win today and they do well at DreamHack Masters Winter, they could be in for a play-in spot to Katowice. And I want to take a look, obviously, at the other regions as well. The most interesting story for me here, I've been saying it all week, is Fury already have a spot in Katowice, but Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid, given that EG have had to pull out of a couple of events, Liquid could potentially nick their direct invite if they do well at DreamHack Masters Winter. And there are plenty of other events aside from Katowice on the road to Cologne as well. So you can see our calendar there. People are basically competing to be in these two marquee events. The marquee calendars, folks, we've also got 8 DreamHack Open events still to be announced. I'm going to welcome back my lovely analysts, the Metalhead and the Spider Killer, Keskase. Thank you for rejoining me, guys. And this is the final as we expected, isn't it, Blair?
Oh yeah, I mean, you have to be really, really unaware of the Counter-Strike scene if you weren't expecting these two teams in the finals. Maybe there was a world if Nemiga had their full lineup, if Lollipop hadn't broken his hand, there was a chance, an outside chance of them beating out Gambit and making it to the finals. But here we do have Spirit and Gambit, both the teams being top 20 teams around in the world right now, competing to be kind of like in the top 2, top 3 spot in the CIS region as well. So yeah, I'm excited for this finals. I think that's something everyone's been looking forward to.
Well, let's do a quick recap of how we got here, starting with Group A's group bracket. So as you can see, Spirit, they never lost a map, in fact, did they, Vu?
They got real close. Apex took them all the distance on train, but no maps lost. You know, no harm, no foul.
And Blair, I want you to take us through Group B. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Because Gambit, again, clear favorites here.
Yeah, they didn't drop a map either, right? So all of them have gone 6. Both the teams have gone 6-0. Gambit actually looked more convincing, I guess is the word I'd use in this to reach the finals. The only series which got a little close for them where it had to sweat a bit, I do believe, was when they played in the semifinals against AGF, where it was yesterday, which was 19-17 on Inferno, 16-13 on Dustry. Apart from that, they were very comfortable against Illuminar and as well as Nemiga as well. So yeah, overall, Spirit are kind of the better team, but Gambit, they've looked better than any other team so far in this tournament.
Yeah, so we're going to head to our playoffs bracket and we're just going to take a look, see how Spirit got on as well. 2-0 again against Illuminar. Quite the performance really, although again, actually, the scorelines kind of lie a bit because there have been moments where these two teams have struggled, Vu.
Yeah, it's a bit of an inverse. Spirit struggled a little bit more in the groups against Flascola and against Apex, getting brought the distance. And in the semifinals, they didn't struggle quite as much. I think we all agreed that Illuminar probably actually should have taken Train off of them. They got 12 rounds, and Snacks really didn't show up the way he usually does, unfortunately. Gambit, brought the distance on both maps, really, and that ends up with us in the finals.
Well, let's go to our map veto. This is a best of 5. And Blair, we know the maps that are going to be vetoed.
Yeah, no Nuke, no Vertigo, and we know which maps are going to be picked, the remaining 5, right? Simple, easy, done and dusted. But jokes aside, I feel like I wrote down my notes. Okay, hold on, we're just going to be coming out straight ahead. All right, we were wrong, Vu. No Inferno. We thought Inferno was going to be picked at least in the first or maybe the second phase, but it looks like it's going to be a decider. I don't know. I started fear for Gambit here. I won't lie. I feel Inferno was a very good opportunity for them to at least get a map here.
Hang on a second.
Yeah, that's where
Go right ahead, Vu.
That's where me and Vlad disagreed, actually. I felt like Gambit might lose Inferno, even though they've got a 90% win rate on it, or over 90%. I felt like Inferno was going to be a map that went the way of Spirit. I think Vlad thinks that it goes the way of Gambit, and maybe that's why I think we disagreed on those the outcome of this series.
Well, we haven't actually seen Spirit play Inferno at this event. Last time they played it, they lost against Virtus Pro, and they had a T-side that, to be honest, didn't really ever get started. So when it comes down to Inferno, or if it comes down to Inferno, I think it could be an even one. I don't think either team is particularly confident on that map at the moment. But we are kicking off with Dust 2, which is a map these teams are incredibly confident on. And both teams, it strikes me, I hope I'm right in saying this, Vu, both teams seem to prefer to take mid control on their attack.
Yeah, both teams are quite strong on Dust 2, but they play a little bit different. Gambit is more long heavy and Spirit is a little bit more cat heavy. And I think that's why you've seen historically Gambit pick this map against Spirit, and Gambit, despite getting the worst of their outcomes in the best of threes, they usually do come out on top on Dust 2. The last 2 times they've played, both times they've played with Hobbit on the roster, have been wins on Dust 2, but losses on every other map.
Interesting. Well, what are you guys thinking in Twitch chat? Let us know using the hashtag, as you can see on screen right now, hashtag Spirit for Spirit, hashtag GMB for Gambit. Hopefully we kept it nice and simple for you guys. And hopefully we're going to check in right now with Young from Spirit to see how he's feeling ahead of this grand final.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. NextM plasters Magic through the smoke. Actions like this multiple times. They came out swinging, but the bomb's now been dropped out. Magic has this round in the palm of his hand, and he will clench.
It feels really good to be in the final, and we were working for that hard, so it feels good.
In place to find the kills, but doesn't land the shot. Stop! He gets a double! He might have just ended this game with that alone.
I was feeling good on the both maps actually, because I know it was just unlucky for me. So it doesn't matter, even if I'm playing with a bad score, I know that my team doing everything well, so that's how it works in our team.
Weakened member of Spirit, and Veggie goes in again. Young, as I said before, hasn't had the greatest game. Now would be a great time to step up, and he's done a lot of damage to Reach. Now has the advantage. Fake Flash is tossed across. He can go back in for more. He knows this round is in his favor, and Young.
We will fight Gambit. I think it's gonna be Dust 2 for sure on the map pool. It's a good map for both of us, but they won last one. But I think we already fixed our mistakes and we are ready for that. And I think it's gonna be good experience because we didn't play a best of 5 in the long term with our squad. I hope you guys ready for a great game. It's gonna be perfect best of 5, and thanks everybody for cheer for Team Spirit, guys.
One of the nicest players in Counter-Strike. And first off, I just want to remark on something that Young said in that interview, which is he doesn't feel the pressure to show up because of his teammates. But if he doesn't show up today, is that going to be an issue that could lose them this final, Vu?
I think they can usually cover for any weaknesses. It's going to be tough though with Gambit being such a strong team. The reason I actually am leaning towards Spirit is because Gambit has had players that haven't shown up. And I think for this one, it's not going to be about Young necessarily. I think it'll be the duel between Shiro and iDisbalance that could tip the scales.
Who's going to come out on top, Vu?
I think Shiro will come out on top in that duel. If he gets enough of the better of it, they could come out on top in the game.
And he has had some slow starts. I mean, on Dust 2, he wasn't really the impact player last time we saw him play this. It was actually Mira, as I called him, Mira in the middle, because clearly I'm on an 80s trip. So given that it is the first map, and yeah, iDisbalance might not be performing, is that going to be a problem? Is this going to be a close one, Blair?
It is going to be a close one for sure. I don't think that's the thing with Spirit, right? If you look at all the players, you look at Chopper, you look at Magix, the gun is popping off with the AWP as well yesterday. Yavitis Balance is going to be consistent. Mir was just being an entry beast. Might be the best entry in this tournament right now on the T side compared to any other player in this tournament. And then, of course, you have Young, like I mentioned, Chopper as well, in-game leader, a fragging in-game leader, not a high fragger, that's fine. For Gambit, the win condition here is Shiro and Axel, they need to step up at the same time on the same day. That's been missing. Yesterday, Axel was missing. The day before, it was Shiro. So if those two step up and Hobbit continues playing at this high level, this could be a banger. This could go all the way to map number 5.
And before we do check in with Gambit, I also want to know something you found out upon further investigation, Blair, because you've got some concerns about flash assists.
Yeah, I was just looking at the stats. Interesting thing, the unsurprising thing is Spirit and Gambit are number 1 and number 2 in every other stat, 5v4 conversions, 4v5 conversion, trading and everything. And if you look at the utility damage, Spirit are number 1, Gambit are close 3rd. Flash assists, Spirit's the worst. The only team worse than them is the Swedish puck team that's Floscola, which is kind of surprising for me that they're so good in every other statistic and parameter, but when it comes to flash assists, it is lacking by a massive margin compared to Gambit, who are second. So it looks like it doesn't really matter for them. They're still winning their games and doing.
I think that really shows the difference between how these teams have struggled. Gambit had, day one, Shiro didn't do amazing. Day two, Axile really struggled. Or, in the playoffs, Axile really struggled. Spirit, everyone's really shown up. There was only one game where Mir struggled against Apex, and he showed up at the end anyways. But strategically, when it comes to those flash assists, when it comes to smoking off the secondary oppers on Train especially, they have struggled at least a little bit.
Well, let's check in with Exile from Gambit now, because of course we had to have a chat with him too.
Our team is feeling good, really. We are happy. At the start, it was, I don't know, where just running and killed us, and some moments was really crazy.
For a boost. Oh no, they're not! Shiro's gonna wallbang him! PMB, he doesn't need to spot him, and he gets the second as well. Watching his teammate do it, trying to give it a go. Shiro, nah, this is mine. This is mine.
And against VC versus Spirit, it will be interesting match. We just want to win this tournament, and DreamHack Masters will be really interesting because the top teams like Astralis.
Out of nowhere! This is the round where he goes nuclear!
It will be really interesting, and we are want to win this tournament.
Comes, doesn't need it, a little too late. Jayo's already lost his Negan known as the possibility of them being flanked in, and Nafani's going from strength to strength. Did 3 kills, make it 4, and the ace with the dual Berettas. Oh my god, that's such a sick play, and you can see how
This final will be important, and we really want to win this. I just want to wish good luck and have fun.
Good luck, have fun, giggle, giggle, but you're gonna lose. And last time these two teams met at IEM New York, Spirit did take the W in 3 one-sided maps. Gambit did take Dust 2, that's our opening map today as well. But Axile did underperform, so I'm wondering if there potentially is a trend here. We've been talking about the fact that Axile had some difficulties yesterday. If he doesn't turn up, could this be a 3-0, Blair?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Like, for Gambit, that's what worries me, right? Like, Nafani and Intros, yeah, they have the moments, but not exactly these, hard fraggers, right? It's Hobbit, who has been quietly very consistent. He's actually, I think he's got like a 1.22 rating right now overall in the tournament, which is very impressive. But the Shiro and Axel, they just take turns showing up on a given day, which is something they need to avoid. It's the finals. They need to really deliver here. And Spirit, I feel like they are the better team overall. They have the better individuals spread out amongst all 5 of them. They have, I feel, it's a little bit of a better map pool. So yeah, for Gambit, they need to bring their A++ game here.
They have a 6-strong map pool, although there are question marks around Inferno. I don't feel like that's a very confident one for them. But does it even matter? Because it's the decider map. They need to perform on everything else instead, Vu. And also, before we go to predictions, Blake, you say that the individuals are stronger on Spirit. I don't know if I agree with that, because
it's more spread out. Let's put it that way.
We talk about Inters. He's that 5th man. Hobbit says he's got the best aim on the team, and actually, he did really show up yesterday when he needed to. And so I feel like maybe it's just the way that Gambit plays. We're not always seeing people pop off. Whereas if I think about Spirit, I think, well, Sumdai Young, he used to be known as this big fragger, this big multi-killer, but now he seems to do what the team needs him to do, and Chopper presses W, goes, and he dies. Vu, what do you think?
It's really tough to say. I mean, the individuals really pop out from Gambit. You have Shiro, top frag performances, Axile, top frag performances, and it's more spread out over Spirit. So it's really tough to say who's necessarily better individually. Maybe we'll see who's better on the day here. And certainly I think Gambit have had some individual struggles in the tournament.
That's true. We're going to go to predictions, although before we do, I will say actually Chopper is incredible at closing down rounds as well, so apologies. I don't want to be mean to anyone. These players are incredible. So let's go to your predictions instead. Blair, what are you saying?
I will have to go with Spirit. I think it's going to smell like Team Spirit at the end of the day. I feel I have to agree with all of you, right? It is going to be a very close matchup. They are very evenly poised, so to speak, to take this particular series. But like I said, when it comes to the individuals, even if, let's say, Idispan doesn't show up. There's Mir, there's some Diane, there's Magix with the AWP as well. They have so many players to pick up the slack, and that is something I feel Gambit don't possess. So I'm gonna go with Spirit, although I'm gonna give Gambit at least one map here.
Vu.
I'm going with something very similar. I'm going to go with a 3-1 for Spirit. I definitely think Gambit can bring it. I mean, last time they met on Overpass, it went into overtime. Could bring it to Inferno, and Inferno, if Hobbit's on point, could actually go the way of Gambit, but still Spirit 3-1, I think, is the most likely.
Okay, there's part of me that's saying if this was in a month or two time, I would say Gambit, but actually I'm going to say Spirit. I'm going to agree with you guys because Vu's never wrong, it turns out, as much as it pains me to say it. But what Twitch chat's saying? I've been told by production this is definitely right. Don't question the results. 50-50, and that is why I got that message. Incredible. I mean, normally I get really angry if the desk doesn't pick a side, but Twitch chat, I absolutely love you, never change, and I hope you really enjoy this grand final. We know that we're going to have a blast here at the DreamHack Open because, in my opinion, and it is a humble one, but it's true, Tom Beers and Vince are the best new duo in Counter-Strike commentary, so you are going to have an absolute blast as we head into the grand final of the DreamHack Open November. Spirit versus Gambit after the break.
The grand finals are upon us, and it's going to be a CIS slugfest. I can't wait for this one, Tom. I think it could go right down to the wire, and I would not be surprised if we get the full 5 maps.
Yeah, it's the final we expected all along, and I think the thing I'm looking forward to most is it's the one that, in terms of firepower throughout this event, these are the two teams that you almost want to see them matching up against each other for the highlights, for the brawl, and of course, there's nowhere better, Vince, to kick things off than on a trusty Dust 2. Two teams that are both very competent at this map, going head-to-head to see who is the king.
This will be a good barometer as well to see how Shiro and Idisbalance come into this game. They touched on it on the desk, and I completely agree that it's been a strange one where both teams have had their individuals at parts go a little bit dull. Plays that you expect to see really leading the charge. So let's have a look how Dust 2 fares. Gambit on the T side, already pressuring up Catwalk and Long simultaneously.
Axar looking to lead the way. He's been a real focal point of this team. Idisbalance was mentioned to potentially not fare too well in the AWP battle, but we're going to get the face-off of the two early on. This time with the pistol, he will double up early and into 1v4. It is not going to be happening. Spirit utterly dominate the pistol round and get off to a strong start. The interesting thing for me, Vince, will be, do we see any sort of reinvestment? Because when we watched previously, Gambit were actually fairly happy to go in with some Tech 9s, and I was sort of questioning whether or not that's a disrespect to that specific opponent, or if that's a common thing, and this time, they bought nothing.
Yeah, it's just P250s. Really not too much to write home about. $900 invested in total. And already Neo, with a very good spawn, is pushed straight into lower tunnels, takes the head off of Hobbit. And in doing so, Gambit don't really have much to really use in retaliation. We've already discussed they pretty much tapped out of this one, so Spirit will be off to a great start. It's just a question of if they can get any kills, and Sundai Young comes in with the MP9, shuts Intis down from the back, and Shiro and Axile really have no hope at getting anything. Good news as well for Spirit, a ton of those kills were in the hands of the SMGs, so they've just printed a bunch of cash, but now here comes the buy that Gambit have been waiting for.
Yeah, I think to premise things as well, we have to mention that this is also the choice of Gambit and a map that, in my opinion, they desperately need to win. I think if they're going to have a chance in this series, they need to put a stamp on things early, because once Spirit get rolling, they're terrifying. And in terms of map pool in general, I do think they have slightly more depth on different maps than when it comes to Gambit. As you mentioned, though, a first buy around, maybe to set the scene a little bit of how Gambit are actually going to perform. We've seen both their stars go quiet in different maps throughout this tournament so far. have to hope for their sake that we are going to see both Performing and Hobbit. Well, he's been the consistent factor. However, Mir, we know he likes to get aggressive. Both sides of the map, he's going to play around these doors both times, probably on the side you might not expect.
Yeah, and they've both been based off spawns, so I wonder, once he starts getting spawns for the long side of the map, this is what a lot of teams will do. They'll actually play more off spawns than specific positions, other than a B site, I would say. Maybe that will stop to be the case, but Gambit will have to respect that. And it's great that Spirit have no issue just getting away from any kind of nerves, perhaps, of freeing themselves up and allowing themselves to move into positions a bit unorthodox and take Gambit out of their comfort zone. They know it's effectively a bonus, so anything from here is a nice cherry on top. 40 seconds to play with smokes being dispatched over on long. Magic's nearly caught with a incendiary out, but still holds on with Mia. It's Mia that claims the kills, but Magic's was the bullet sponge. Now Sundai Young with his MP9 is doing so much work, tagging both Exile down and also Shiro, and Idis Balance will finish off the rest. And considering they had 2 MP9s and a scout there, Tom, that is a phenomenal round for Spirit.
Yeah, we talk about the stars of the show when it comes to this matchup, and although we look at the likes of Axile and Shiro as probably the future stars of the CIS, maybe even looking to get to right near the top of the rankings, if we're talking about skill ceiling right now, I think Mir has to be where your money is put. Like, this guy has been ridiculous. In Vega Squadron, we saw much of the same, and when he went into, well, Gambit, we thought maybe it was just that team. Maybe it was just that him being the focal point that worked for him. Well, it's not to be the case. He's come into Spirit. He's been fantastic through and through, and has basically been one of the main reasons we put this team on the map. So the fact he's got off to a flying start, a very good sign for them. 5-0 already. And in this round, well, you almost have to look at Gambit and go, can you make this costly? Can you at least reduce the amount of money? Because in this situation, you've already got a couple of AKs thrown over, an AWP Fry disbalance, and a few players with over $5,000. If this one is clean, it's already a pretty scary spot.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. Now, also, we'll keep some of those cooler players, the ones that haven't quite warmed up, and that's the bomb dropped in the meanwhile from Mia, which is pretty much the end of the round. You don't expect him to overstep or make any mistakes, and Idis Balance right alongside him. But if they can continue to completely shut down Gambit, it will just put more pressure on those key integral players. And that's where maybe the pressure becomes a little bit too much to handle. Are in Grand Finals, best of 5, position that a lot of these players haven't been in too many times. Point to prove, 30 seconds in which Nafani to maybe just whittle down the time and treat it almost like a mini timeout for what's going to come up next, because they will have another buy. Should be able to afford an AWP on Shiro. But Spirit will hold on to all 5 players, and as you highlighted, Tom, that has done the world of good to their economy. They have 3 players around the $8,000 mark.
Yeah, so much so that they're actually not even going to keep any of those bonus weapons anymore. They just straight upgrade them. Like, they've still got enough for another purchase. They don't need to be playing bonus rounds in this situation. They have enough money, so they're going to go in with a double AWP setup straight away. Sundai Young, we know he likes to be a focal point on this B site, holding it down a lot of the time on his own, but this is a bit of a pace change coming out straight through mid. Nafani's run into a Molotov and taken so much damage. Luckily, there's a bit of a response onto Idis Balance, but it looked like they were just going to try and brute force mid. Instead, they've almost had to fall back into much more of a standard default.
Yeah, quickly shimmying into plan B. Plan B has cost them 72 HP on Nafani. Not ideal. Bunch of nades were tossed as well. Still have 3 smokes and some flashes with Molotovs, so Gambit can still put that down range and get some success. They would be having to traipse over Catwalk with no long control. This does mean that the second they start to push Idis Balance, Magix can turn his head and help him with the AK. They also have Chopper up here, but the timing may work against them just as they go for that rotation. Flashes come in, tons of damage as well with grenades, and Axel gets finished off by Chopper, who's now perched up just behind the side. Even though there's Molotovs in play, they've not got the bomb down just yet. The bomb's actually dropped towards CT side. That is horrific for the T's, and their low HP bars not bothering them too much. They still come out, still land some headshots with the AK-47s, and in a 3-on-3, the bomb has finally got planted. Equal keel in terms of manpower, but the HP bar certainly in favor of Gambit now, the Inters has gone in, taking the head off of Mia. Magic straight back in onto Hobbit, time ticking away on the bomb. They still have Shiro, who's yet to get any kills on the site, and now he shows his hand with the AK. Down goes Magic. That was looking almost impossible for Gambit, but they have pulled it out the bag.
Yeah, and there's a part of me that wonders how. Like, they took so much utility damage on the way in. It was a statistic brought up by the desk that for everything other than flash assist, you pretty much put Spirit and Gambit right at the top. Well, the nades were landing perfectly. It just came down to players being caught off guard. Like, I think there was a peek from Nafani, which just completely owned IDIS balance. And while all of that bonus cash, all the money we were talking about, took one round. It's diminished. It's gone. They have got to buy at least. Or more importantly for Gambit, if they want to get off to a strong start, this is their best opportunity. They can break the economy here. It's a swing out from Hobbit, looking to try an entry frag, and he has forced both players back off of Cat. So gaining that early control, and you have to bear in mind that Spirit's plan, at least in the initial stages of this round, was to take Cat control. So they're going to have to try and re-aggress somewhere else because they've lost that a little bit too early for my liking.
Yeah, it has been a consistent theme, even in the rounds that Gambit have conceded. So eventually you have to feel like that back may very well break, and then there will be a flurry of rounds and Gambit closing the gap. Hobbit narrowly missing out on the head. Chopper actually bypassing the Molotovs. Does take damage for his troubles. Bomb about to get tickled from Nafani, but instead he actually sticks it fully. He knew the Inters had his side covered. Another post plant on A. This time though, it's a 5-on-5. But Gambit won from a much worse position last time around, so I'm not sure how much Spirit can feasibly muster. No incendiaries to lock off one of these angles. Very few grenades, and some lives now being deemed forfeit, but Chopper shows his hand with 2 before it's cut clean off. IDIS balance with the AWP, but there's only a quarter of the timer left, and Axile making the most from long. Double headshots delivered first class, and Gambit double up their rounds.
Very well played by them. And again, I sort of mentioned it at the time that losing that Cat control, that was the plan. Like, that was the idea from Team Spirit early on, was, okay, we're going to take Cat, we're going to remove it from their control, not allow them to keep it. It took a very small amount of utility for Gambit to actually get into that position. So very well played by them. They take complete control and get themselves a very easy after plan. And thus far, they've done very well at doing something that a lot of teams struggle with, and that is negating IDIS balance's AWP. We've seen that same sort of deep smoke. As said, it gives you shrouded cover over the top that goes onto the sort of little boost boxes that you use to get your fast Cat done. And they've done that a couple of times now, and he hasn't really been able to do anything as they've entered into the site.
So a timeout has been called, after which Spirit have a Zeus and a 5-7. Mia, this time getting a bit more aggressive towards the B side. The bulk of the CTs are stacked over here, with some Young up close with the Zeus on middle doors. So this is more of a gamble stack, which is somewhat surprising considering that Gambit have effectively pushed Catwalk the last 2 rounds, but maybe it's just playing the reverse psychology, the mind games. Molly down, Sundai Young forced out of position, but it was actually moving out, so it doesn't get tagged by that Molly. No sound cue giving across to the T's.
Come on. We've seen so many failed attempts at Zeus kills throughout, but this time Sundai Young is going to nail it. He actually retrieves a rifle, but he's not going to get back out of that corner. The stat currently in play, though, sat on the B site. You can see there's a patient hold from Nafani, just waiting and watching into top mid in case anybody does go aggressive, but they need to do their due diligence properly here. If he goes walking into the A site, even just has a look around, they'll know that there's nobody here. Instead, Axile's going to go walking into the open. That could be a free kill. He does take down Chopper for his troubles, but I think this has been the moment they've realized, okay, if IDIS balance is here, he's normally an A-site player. The AK being dropped once again, and Nafani, he's trying to sell this, that they're still going in this direction, and also try and deny them from getting any of those guns.
Yeah, I think trying to deny the arsenal weaponry was certainly the priority there for Nafani. Spirit, though, will have a buy, but after having a real phenomenal start to the map, things have cracked down significantly. Can get their hands on an AWP, but it's at the cost of Kevlar. 0 kits across the lot of them. And again, Gambit haven't really had too many issues when it comes to getting on the site. In actual fact, when they got into the site last time, all 10 players were alive. The round before that, 7 or 8 were alive. So I wonder if Spirit will play more aggressive according to their lack of kits. So far, nothing really to write home about, Tom. It's fairly standard. I mean, I suppose the one main change is that Chopper has been a bit more aggro on Catwalk, but he's alone, and therefore he has to back away.
This is very patient from Gambit as well. I think they've made the same realization as you, that it is going to be that position where they don't have everything they need to defend in this sort of round. So let's make sure we're not caught out by all of this aggression. And they know that Mir likes to push mid, Chopper as well. We've sort of mentioned it. He can be a loose cannon at times. And Shiro, he was so patient, just homed in on the angle. Hobbit again is going to get an entry while pushing through Cat. And this has been almost rinse and repeat for Gambit thus far this game. Simplistic entries into A, after plant positions, and from then onwards, Team Spirit haven't even come close.
Yeah, that cold start that we've seen on, honestly, both sides of the coin over this duration of the tournament felt like Gambit had basically came into this game sleepwalking. Definitely not the case any longer. Now they're really putting the pressure down. They're inflicting it directly to Spirit. Sundai Young holds onto his M4. With the frag onto Hobbit, maybe they feel compelled to try and press aggressive into tunnels and retrieve that AK. Would be a nice upgrade. Gambit's money is decent, but it's not quite good enough to justify throwing all these weapons and all these bodies away. So I think they'll be relatively content to just allow the bomb to take its course, take us down to a 4-4. We expected this to be close, Tom, and so far it's delivered. I would say, though, it's been very streaky, from very one-sided to Spirit to incredibly one-sided to Gambit, and they've already dropped 2 tactical timeouts, and we're only headed into round 9. It makes sense to me, but it goes to show just how much Spirit are suffering.
Elliot loves any stat that involves a Zeus. Like anything that involves Zeus kills and knife kills, he's going to be there looking for it and picking it up and putting it on the stream. Well, there you go. Yeah, Sundai Young has attempted a lot of Zeus kills as well, though. I think that would be an interesting stat. I don't know if it's one you can even find out how many successful Zeus kills he's got in comparison to how many he's bought. I imagine it would be a landslide of misses. He got one just now, made things a little bit more costly. Of course, for the T side at this point, they've had after plant positions, a few saves even coming out for Spirit as well. So their money's starting to look pretty good. And I've been enjoying what I'm seeing from them so far. As I said, I think this is a map they need to take. So some of the others I don't think are going to favor them as well. It's one that statistically is very, very good for them, even with the amount of maps that they've currently been playing. And actually one that they do normally win versus Spirit. To note, though, they normally lose any other map that's in the pool. So probably not the greatest of statistics to bring up when we are in our first map of the grand final. But this is a necessity is what I'm trying to say.
Shiro very nearly caught as he tries to retreat across. It was Mia that was facing off against him. Midas Balance goes onto Catwalk, smokes himself into a position where he can go for that peak. And with Gambit already losing a player, a second being spotted over towards the tunnel side, they decide to try and make up their ground in long. They have successfully bypassed any obstacles to get into the lower ramp side, but they still need to cross here, Tom. They've got plenty of utility, though, to make this a reality, and they're about to push in.
Molotov thrown to try and force some angles out, but the full rotation has almost come in. 4 players ready and waiting, and one just trying to hold on to the flank. Mir straight through the smoke is going to get rid of Hobbit. And Inter's probably a little bit wary at this point, holding the bomb, but they are walking into a trap. There's so many players here from Spirit. If they somehow win this round, you're going to have to look at Team Spirit, but it's starting to slip. 2 kills come back, but Sundai Young has them covered. It's left onto Axel. He's got 10 seconds. There's nothing he can do here. He'd need to kill them all almost instantly, and it won't happen this time. Spirit bounce back, get a 5th onto the board. But as we've mentioned already, there's plenty still to come from Gambit.
Yeah, and as you touched on there, that felt like it should have been a complete shutdown with Spirit coming up with 4 players feeling pretty good about the tactical timeout they just dropped. Instead, it got a little bit sketchy again. And keep in mind, this comeback from Gambit, this slew of rounds, was off the back of a very, very solid hold from Gambit on A. A round that looked like it should have gone the way of Spirit, with Hobbit just going huge. We'll have to see if that continues to be the case here. Mia, patience, waiting in middle, anticipating someone was jumping up at Xbox, actually takes Hobbit down through the wall in the head with the secondary AWP.
He's not normally one to even pick up the secondary AWP, especially when we see it come in for Spirit. In this map, it's normally some Young. When we see on Train, we normally look to someone like Magic. So I don't know if he's just been feeling it, or maybe the opposite, some Young not feeling it, but nonetheless, I think it might have even just been a spawn. Like, he's switched it over now, and they're going back to what is the standard. Again, though, speaking of standards, we're going back to Cat.
Good old Cat, plenty of damage. This balance finishes off Exile. There was a flash tossed in from Shiro, doing more harm than good. Molly to the back of the slide doesn't really affect Idis balance whatsoever. He does walk into the second. He's been singed, but he's still alive. He's denied this bomb plant for so long. And that injection of cash may not be forthcoming. With 30 seconds, Gambit have a little bit of time to try and relocate, to snuff out some of the resistance. They've dealt with Idis balance, and then Shiro flicks in for the shot onto Magic, still 56 HP. They have to come to him. The next headshot goes his way, but Mia is the pain in the backside. The nemesis of Gambit trades up, and we'll get the successful defuse out as well. But it's another incredibly close round, and it keeps Spirit's economy honest.
Yeah, I think that's been the main thing so far. There's been a few rounds now where Spirit look like they're about to take things cleanly, that they have the right players in the right place at the right time, and then it just slips away from them. Like, somebody comes up big, like Shiro there looked like he really did have a chance to actually close out that round. Just, well, maybe a slight mishap or a quick instant trade from Mir. Nonetheless, it's done enough to cost their economy. The other thing as well is note how most of the time when you see Idis balance AWPing this map, he's either playing from car or from the wall further towards long. He actually completely moved this spot just to be a little bit more aggressive because they kept just flashing him out of position and smoking him out of spot. So I like that. A little bit of a change up just to try and counter what has been coming in so far from Gambit. Unfortunately for this round, you mentioned the damage that's been done, keeping the economy honest of Spirit. They're going to need to do a little bit more because, again, it's the same as before. You don't want to see Spirit just coming up with a huge amount of economy in this situation.
Come on, Shiro, pull the trigger. Oh, the scout, he waited. He didn't want to fire in. If he has the AWP, I think he just goes for the shot straight away. But he lined it up to perfection. Chopper, low HP, but still pulls the trigger to the head of Shiro. And although Hobbit connects a few body shots with the Deagle, he has now finished off. So again, that economy not really flourishing. All 3 players are low, by the way. In terms of clutches, Tom, this is very doable. The bomb is retrievable. All 3 players are 1 bullet away from death with the D, but some die young. Staying in middle will pacify him with the AWP.
Yeah, Spirit have the players they need popping off at this point. I mentioned Mir at the beginning of the game, and even on the desk it was brought up that a lot of the time Shiro has a really good sort of face-off when it comes to him and Idis balance. Idis balance is currently one of the top fraggers in the entire server, so it clearly hasn't been going his way today. Magic's you could see a little bit further down, but that's because he's jumped in towards long, and weirdly enough, there haven't been an awful lot of just straight-up challenges for long. That's something that Gambit quite commonly do, but they have put a much heavier focus on Cat throughout this game, and although it was working in the initial stages, I think the adaptation that's coming from Spirit has actually made things quite tough for them to now gain that same level of control.
Oh, that smoke allows Mia to just push straight in, and Inters gave his position away with that flashbang. That kind of aggression, so costly, and so tilting as well. There's some more aggression. The timing could not be worse for Gambit in this round. Nafani, Inters, both picked off by opportunistic pushes. Mia on 13 kills already, been the linchpin of Spirit as he so often is. and now funnels away Gambit over onto the B side where there are Sumdai Young and Mia waiting. Sumdai Young will take the first point to call. There are smokes and flashes, but they'll try and dry peek this with the AWP. And Sumdai Young nullifies Shiro. Good grenade damage done behind it and an instant smoke to put up the wall. Hobbit can't get the wraparound. Destroyed by Mia, who spins around and takes him out through the smoke. Best of luck to you, Exile. 1 on 5.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Oh, no.
How is that still a thing? That's one of the things that's irritated me most in Counter-Strike for the longest time. It's like, click E to pick up weapon. Lol joke. Never mind. You don't get it. And he's just been owned. Like, the worst thing is as well, is from his perspective, he probably just looks at that and goes, oh, it was just bad timing. Nope, he couldn't pick it up 3 different times. So that is very unfortunate.
That's an interesting statistic, although you expect that the best players will be in the finals, but I'm trying to figure out who the other 3 players are that didn't make it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was maybe TMB. I'd probably put him up there. I think he's been consistently good throughout the entire tournament. I don't think he's had a particularly bad map. I know that Christo had a few good maps, but I think the bad ones might have outweighed it slightly. I guess also maybe if there was someone who did really well consistently, but their team lost, it might still put them in some of the higher rated positions.
Yeah, I think TMB is definitely a good shout. I would be surprised if he doesn't factor in the top 10 somewhere. Had a great tournament, all things considered. Iris Balance has missed. And Nafani will punish Mia as a result. Mia felt like he had to wide swing to save his AWP. Now keep in mind that Iris Balance has already taken a lot of damage. The shadow around the corner nearly gives his position away, and he nearly gets punished for that. This is a round coming into it. You'd have given Gambit very little hope. But now, no! Sumdai Young misses the shot. Nafani survives, and now Chopper can try and hold on to Catwalk. Second player comes in. It's Magic's. He takes off the head of Inters. Damage onto Shiro and then drops down. Important play, considering that one of the 3 exceptionally low, and Sumdai Young in that range of the Deagle. Magic's has now been finished off, and he was the full HP member. He was the healthy one that they needed to balance off. They have the bomb across to the site. This is a winnable 2v2 retake.
They even have the bomb planted in a good position, and actually Axel's going to go on the wraparound. Shiro just having to try and hold the line. He's forced into an angle, but the AWP doesn't catch him, and now Axel's positioning could be absolutely perfect. He waits a moment though, and actually iDisbalance is able to kill off his teammate, leaving it into the 1v1. Axel's found himself the AWP, but the bomb's not planted for him. He wrapped away from long, and that allows Sumdai Young to defuse it in front of his face. That is a heartbreaking situation, and unfortunately, Gambit played so well in that round, but they're not going to take it.
That is a round, though, that even though Spirit have taken it, they're looking over their shoulder, they're looking at each other in the eyes and being like, guys, how the hell did we nearly lose that? That was Deagles. There was barely anything at play for Gambit. Their money was so good, though, that honestly, even though they lost all their players, doesn't really matter a great deal, as we're towards the business end of the first half of our grand finals, best of 5. If you have just joined us, it should be every bit as close as we were anticipating. And this first half, I think, is showing you why. A lot of evenly matched players out there. Gambit again taking control over Catwalk. This has been a reoccurring theme. It hasn't really had much success elsewhere. So they'll go back for the tried and tested. iDisbalance, 13 kills to his name. Smoked and mollied off, but does have an angle to peer across the Catwalk. Must have been a call to his teammates, though, that there's a very good possibility that some of the T's have already crossed to the site. So he needs some help from Chopper, who is tapping up. Could be picked off from Nafani, who can see the tracer fire coming through the smoke and goes for the preemptive spray. iDisbalance has had some success in that very position earlier on. And that success very well precedes him and punishes him. Good grenade damage, but Spirit in a position where their economy, if they were to lose a bunch of players here, would be pretty much naught for the very last round of the half. So they may have to pull the plug. I feel like Gambit get this round purely off the basis of Spirit going passive.
Yeah, Yeah, they relied, again, very, very heavily on Idis Balance to hold down that site. It seems to be the case almost every single time. If he gets a multi-frag, easy round on A. If he gets nothing, seems like so do they. So Gambit, again, we haven't seen anything else. It's only been these plays in towards the A site. The B site has almost been a safe haven for Team Spirit. They haven't really had any challenge in that direction other than with pistols a few times. And well, if I'm them at this point, I'd probably just put more of a heavy emphasis in that direction, because it seems like Gambit have almost just got into their minds, okay, this is the only place we can win. Let's just keep doing the same thing again and again.
Exactly. If you're having a ton of success, you may as well just keep applying that pressure, honestly. Spirit have been forced into a knee-jerk reaction, but it is one that roundhouse kicks Gambit straight on the chops. And now they are struggling. They are being pushed down by grenades and fully submerged by the AWP of Mia, of all players, and he finishes in style, as do Spirit. They'll lead 10-5 going into the second half. Stick with us as we come back after the break.
Am I wasting time? 'Cause I'm already gone. So long, can you stay the night? 'Cause you're the thing I want. I know you're feeling different when you're stressed out, but even with no makeup you still stand out. 'Cause no one makes me feel the way you do now. Like you do now. The way that you move your body, you make it look like a hobby. Every time that you touch me, it's electricity. Things we discovered underneath last night's covers. Everything came so easy. It's electricity. Late at night, I feel you on my skin. You're all that's on my mind. It's finally sinking in. You're it. I know you're feeling different when you're stressed out, but even with no makeup you still stand out. 'Cause no one makes me feel the way you do now. Like you do now. That you move your body, you make it look like a hobby. Every time that you touch me, it's electricity. Things we discovered underneath last night's covers. Everything came so easy. It's electricity.
Two teams that are no strangers to each other. They've played multiple times. They typically go pretty close, and although the scoreline looks a bit one-sided, it could have easily been the reverse. Gambit only have 5, could have had at least 7 or 8, but now on the CT side, they will be coming through with full Kevlar apart from the Nefani, with a couple of flashes, and Spirit with plenty of utility of their own. And whereas Gambit were very catwalk heavy, Spirit to kick things off, occupying towards the B side of the map.
Yeah, they've got a hell of a lot of utility. Started this round off with 3 smokes, Molotovs to boot, a flashbang, and of course, iDisbalance got his trusty P250. It looks like they're already in set to head into this B site, but probing the map, maybe trying to just keep a few players on the rotation. Mir, I mean, he's almost renowned at this point for lurking around middle, so just showing himself over the A side of the map could give a bit of a false positive of the direction they're going. But here goes the double smoke, holding onto the cross. Inters has spotted at least one, and Axile will start things off. Molotov going into the back of the site, at least giving them a little bit of extra space to try and clear these players, but they're struggling. Inters is still standing. They need to clear this man from the back of the site, and eventually they will, leaving only one man surviving. But that man is Shiro.
Man is one of the best players on the server. One of the best players hailing from the CIS region. The Russian wants to ravage into the site. Trying to pre-fire angles, try and draw out one of these two plays. Knows he has to go for a gamble risk, goes in for the instant peek, and Shiro could be clutching this, but Sumda Young holds his nerve, holds his position, and Spirit hold on to the second pistol.
Oh, Live, I believed in him. The second he gets that first shot, it looked like it was all Shiro for Sumda Young, but he's been playing well. Obviously, there's still the man Mir at the top of the server, 21-7, having a ridiculous performance, and there isn't really a player falling flat for them at this point. I would almost say the same for Gambit, though. Like, sure, the frags haven't been incredible, but we've had different players stepping up to bring them through rounds. Unfortunately, they're just not matching up to Spirit at the moment. A map that historically they've done quite well at least normally winning, actually, versus Team Spirit, but so far, not so good. Shiro, it's not his AWP, but he does have a trusty scout. He's going to come under pressure. Hasn't had the chance to really shine too many times in this series so far, but this is one of them.
Being pressured by multiple adversaries. He tries to dip out of there. He knew it was an untenable position. But Spirits have no mercy. They steamroll the site. And Hobbit has picked up an AK. I mean, the chances of clutching 1v4 are so slim, I would expect to see him save it. Just post up for exit frags. Problem for his teammates, though, is there's not really much to play behind. However, he does have a deagle, so he could drop that across to one of his teammates. Whether he survives or not is an entirely different matter altogether. But Spirit in that position here where you're going to have a 12-5 lead. No need to throw these guns away. I don't think Hobbit will see any further action. 12-5, though, the score. And it's somewhat surprising to me, Tom, because when Gambit went on their streak, and it was, what, 4-4 at one point, then 5-4, since then they've gone a little bit flat. And I definitely didn't expect that to happen. I thought that's where they would start to shift through the gears.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like after their one sort of cat play stopped working, they had nothing else to go to. And that's very surprising for me. As I said, they're a team that almost play this map religiously. Like, it has come up many a time in matches that they've played. And, well, I actually want to go and look. They played it 17 times over the last few months. It is their joint most played map alongside Mirage. And yet, it just seemed like they were a little bit flat with how things went. Hobbit, though, that's a good start. That's not only him getting an opening pick, but the chance for Axel or maybe Shiro to potentially go gain themselves an extra weapon. In the meantime, though, spotting that rifle, they rotate. And actually, Hobbit was playing it well. He was trying to rotate into another position, but instead gets caught by Mir. And guess where he was, Vince? Of course, he was by the double doors.
As he always is, the constant threat. Flashbang is good. Inters, though, did get the upper hand onto Chopper, who didn't check his angle, and of course Mir is there. Like, this spot should just be renamed to Mir, by the way. You know how we have so many positions like MBK, obviously on Cash, etc. I feel like that spot has to just be called Mir, because he's always there, but he always just seems to get 2 or 3 kills. It's like you even know that he's in that position, and he still kills you. Now, Mir had no idea that Axel was behind the car, so he loses his head, but they will not lose the round. And this is already getting into very deep, murky waters for Gambit. They'll have a buy into the next round. They hope to hold on to the AK. They'll have some AWPs. They could double up and get 2 of them if they so chose. But they have to make it work. There is no more room for error. And sure, it's a best of 5. There's still so much CS to be played and many opportunities to bring this back. But considering how flat they have been and how poor they've looked in part on this Dust 2, it does concern me a little bit, Tom, because you know you were already discussing this before. This felt like it had to be one of their keys to victory.
Yeah, I think the only real saving grace is, of course, the Spirit seems to play really bad on their own map choices. That's been the consistent theme throughout this entire tournament. And they've also picked Train, which, I'll be honest, I wasn't impressed with. Like, the first time we saw them play, their T side was really, really poor. Like, they really struggled and even said it themselves. Okay, mid. Yeah, I think they'll be prepared for that one. He just walked out mid, no flash, no nothing. Just tried to take an aim peek. Secondary AWP actually going to be pulled in onto Inters. Oh, okay. I thought iDisbalance had that one dead to right, so it was almost just ready for Shiro to go down. Instead, he's looking to try and take this into his own hands. A crazy flick from Shiro, and he's definitely woken up. A 4K to bring them through a round on the CT side, and maybe that can get the wind in their sails.
Holy flicks, that was ridiculous. That third kill, where he's aiming at the bottom player that he saw, and then just flicks up to Sundai Young, that's absurd. That's actually insane.
Headshot as well. Didn't even need to flick that far.
we've even said that, you know, Gambit, in terms of their star players, are kind of head and shoulders above the rest of their teammates, and that Shiro would need to have a performance here. We have Train coming up next. It's another Orpus kind of map. I hope he comes alive, Tom. I really do, because the prospect of iDisbalance, who's a great Train player on his own right, against Shiro could be so good. It has forced Spirit back onto effectively just pistols, but they do run and gun with 2 headshots. How many times do we see this happen? A team gets success and they just lose to a pistol rush. And I don't even think Gambit can feasibly go for this now.
That's done. I think that's GG. Like, in all honesty, I think it's done. Like, yeah, you don't come back from that. You've just handed around a missed shot as well, coming in from Inter's a couple. It looked like there was so many players he could have connected onto there and doesn't get anything. And what, Nafani going down almost instantly as well. That's just not good enough. Like, you can't lose a round like this, especially not in a grand final, especially not on your most played map. You have to be more prepared for something like that. And I think Gambit have just let Dust 2 go. Like, sure, they were already very far down, but you couldn't afford to have a round like that this late in the game. And if I'm sat here honestly talking, do I think Spirit won't get 2 more rounds on their T side of this map, even if Gambit start playing to their full potential? No, of course they will. They've been fantastic so far. They've had so many good individual plays. Magix has been very quiet, I think, a lot of the time because they haven't gone towards long when they were on the CT side. He's now come into his own going into the T side. And that's the terrifying prospect for me, because bear in mind the second time we saw Spirit on this map, they actually had a really poor CT side and then played incredibly well on the T side. And if that's where they're probably going to start, chances are Gambit will pick the CT side. And there we go. We, well, did you Big V and Toxic Board, for God's sake.
Oh, no. Thank you. Thank you, our deductive powers. We had to sacrifice our hairlines, but it's okay, Tom. It was worthwhile.
Oh, they're doing it again. They're going to run straight into this B-side again. They think they found the weakness. They're going to try and press down on it. This time, though, it's a much better hold. A turnaround. However, Chopper will find one back in return. Nafani, he can't go down without a fight. If he lets this go even, it could all be over. They've still got the lurk as well from iDisbalance. Slightly different to what we normally see, but with Mir going down a little bit earlier. And actually, this retake starts almost instantly. They're going to run back into the site. However, the picks are all going the way of Spirit. If it wasn't over before, losing a 5-on-3 to Team Spirit probably takes the biscuit. And while with Gambit actually having to scrape the bottom of the battle just to get a bye, this is rough.
The question is, Tom, do they hit B again? Do they keep going? They've got some good spawns, actually, for A long, so probably not. Had 2 of the best spawns you can really pick up, so they're going to be flashing their way out of long. And kind of unfortunate for Spirit, because you'd think that Gambit might, you know, bite down really hard on this and stack 2 or 3 players on B. Actually only sent 1 across there, and it's the scout player. So it could have been a free round. Doesn't really matter, though, because the flash is on point. Hobbit gets bested by Mir's AK, who gets traded out straight away. One fun trade, not too shabby considering the lack of firepower that Gambit have in terms of their weaponry. Molly's to the back of Card, just closing out all of these angles, but keeping their options open. There is so much time remaining on the clock that Gambit have to respect there's a possibility they could be moving elsewhere. And that is why Nafani is making moves through tunnels. He is gaining information for his teammates and allowing these two guys on A to stay here. Did that smoke just bounce off his teammate? It did. I don't think it affects them too much, though, because now they can use that smoke to hide at the back of Goose. While Spirits start to make moves up. This could be the last passage of play of Dust 2. It could be the first map of our grand finals, falling the way of Spirit. And it's plummeting. It's picking up its hit terminal velocity. And Sundai Young puts the bullet in the head of Shiro. Nafani now last man standing. For how much longer is the only question left to answer. Spirit get it done, install. It's 16-6 on Dust 2.
Yeah, massive streak of rounds towards the end. I think it was at one point a 4-4 scoreline, and from then onwards, Gambit only managed to get 2 rounds. Very impressive stuff from them, and well, if they're going to continue into their own map choice with a victory, we could be seeing a very quick 3-0 in this series, Vince, but I've got my fingers crossed that Gambit will be able to return.
I really hope so. From the neutral's perspective, I think Train could offer up a really interesting match. I already said I'd aspire to get to Shiro in form. Yes, please. But we'll have to see, Tom, because consistency has been a bit of a buzzword. It's been a key part of both of these teams. We'll find out if they are going to be consistent on Train. But first, we're heading to the desk after this break, guys.
In the first map of our best of 5 grand final, Spirit came straight out the gate, crushing Gambit at every opportunity, rarely letting their regional rivals get a look in. And Vu, even when Gambit did show some glimmers of hope, Spirit was so quick to adapt.
As Spirit, they opened up with the pistol round, got up to a 4-0 lead, and then Gambit showed why they usually beat Spirit on Dust 2, attacking through Cat, having really crisp Cat executes. And you can see the Gambit, the paranoia kind of set in, the way they were lurking around the map, looking for Exile, who was sitting top mid, Exile, who was lurking top mid quite often, trying to flank in long. It was going really well for them, and you could even see that at a moment, they took out long A on round 9, 4-4. They took out long A. They waited T-spawn for 40 seconds for those pushes. Gambit obliged. They push out Cat. They push out B tunnels. And they win all the duels. And that's kind of the story of the map here.
And Mer, he switched up to the second AWP on the CT side, just to, I guess, surprise the guys on Midvu.
That's exactly what it was. You know, usually Mir is a little bit more towards that. He's a little bit in middle, but he's not playing too close all the time, especially against Gambit, giving them Cat control, and then off of Cat control, they execute into A and they get the better of Spirit. But Mir picked up that op and he started finding opening picks that Gambit just weren't ready for.
And Blair, let's talk about that second half now, because the abuse of the B bomb site by Spirit was absolutely criminal.
Yeah, it was, right? 10-5, you have the 5-round buffer. And I just want to add on to one thing what Vu said as well. I feel like the scoreline, doesn't really accurately represent how close this game could have got. Like the first 4 rounds which Spirit won, it could have been much more, if Gambit had won that, this could be much more closer scoreline. There were a couple of rounds where Spirit actually kind of crapped the bed. They had a full buy against pistols, almost losing it, but someone managed to clinch it out in the end. This could be a much more closer game. But the B bomb side hold from Gambit, that was just a thief, right? Like they were just running on in, taking bomb side for free. One run in particular where Intos, he had the op, he's at the back of the B bomb side, he's got his teammate inside of the B bomb side as well, against Tech 9s and P250s, and he misses every single shot, gets run down with the Tech 9s, and with that, it was pretty much done and dusted. It's just the individuals with Spirit, right? Like Mir showing up, opping, Magic's not even having to do anything. It's not like he had a bad game. He didn't find any more players left to shoot. So yeah, all the individuals popping up for Spirit, and for Gambit, unfortunately, they had the game plan, but but it didn't quite pan out.
Well, we'll see the scoreboard now and take a look in at those individuals, because that round you just mentioned, Blair, it's all the more devastating when you think about the round before. Shiro at mid doors doing what seemed like the impossible, clawing the game briefly out of Spirit's hands, resetting them, and then it all went Pete Tong all over again. One for you 90s kids, that reference. Do you think that we're going to see Shiro really come into his own on this next map of Train? Because this is Spirit's pick, but when they played it against Floscola, they had some issues. Balance didn't show up, and then when they played it again, the Luminar just found gaps in their defense. So surely if the individuals do actually show up on this map, it's going to be an actual close one.
This could be a close one. I won't lie, I was a little surprised that Spirit picked Train again, because yesterday that IV defense, they didn't adapt at all. That is what I was really worried about. Sure, they did send a couple of players back IV a couple of times in that half to try and counter any IV aggression from their opponents, but it wasn't enough. Luckily for them, Illuminara CD side defense was just non-existent, which is why they kind of ran away with it. But that is something I would love to see Gambit abuse, being a bit more confident. I don't want to see Gambit just sitting back and just trying to go for executes mid-round. I want to see them being a little bit more in the face of Spirit on this T side. Then I feel this map could be a little interesting.
Well, let's hope that Axar's flanks are on point, because we're going to go to a short break, and when we come back, we'll be back with map number 2 of this grand final. It's going to be Train.